Hello, welcome back to the channel. Thought I would do a video today on the Potjie course. Starting off with a leek that I picked fresh out of the garden. Chopped that up, heated up a bit of oil in the pot, a three-legged cooking pot, which you're normally supposed to use on a fire, but works fine on the small gas ring. Turn it down a bit. So starting off with a leek, frying that up. Next, onion. Easiest way I found to get rid of the outer dry skin is just to take one of the wet peelings off with it. So just chopping up an onion to put into that. Chop that up fine. And we're going to fry that up with the leek. And those will be our first ingredients, which give the Potjie a lot of flavour. Don't have to be really fine because these ingredients tend to more or less disintegrate in the pot, because we're going to slow cook this stuff. So in goes the onion. Any onion will do. Don't have to be purple, it can be just a normal coloured onion, doesn't matter. So that's our onion in the pot, and once that gets browned, turn it up a little bit actually. Once the leek and onion is cooked a bit and browned a bit, then we've got meat. Bought some beef, cubed beef, and this is bacon medallions. What I do, I left it in the freezer for a couple of hours. It starts to freeze up, then the stuff is a bit harder and it's easier to slice it up. So that's smoked bacon and beef. That's going to go in there, and then I'm going to add my spices. Right, now that the onions and leek have cooked for a bit, starting to brown, I'm going to add the meat. Chuck all of it in one go. Blood as well, that gives it more flavour. And we're going to brown that. So we'll give that 5 minutes or so to go, to get brown. And then we're going to add the spices. Spices that I normally put in this: ground black pepper, bit of coriander, grind a bit of that up, some classic barbecue seasoning, I use that for all sort of beef dishes. Cloves, I put about 6 of them in there, and bay leaves. Managed to buy these at Trago Mills, quite cheap. So, because normally a jar of spice in the shop costs about £2 now, so how many times can I fill that with that? So I normally put 4 or 5 bay leaves in there, gives it a nice flavour. And then add 1 beef stock cube to that. What I do, I boil some water, mix the stock cube with hot water to dissolve it. Pour the stock into the pot, because you need some liquid in there when you're going to leave it to simmer. And then afterwards I will show you how to make the dumplings that I'm going to put on top, and they are delicious. It's a recipe that a family member gave me. So there we go, the meat is now starting to brown nicely there, and of course I'm going to add some veg with that as well. So the meat is now starting to brown nicely in there. Time to add some spices. Just mix this all up a bit. Already smells nice because of the smoky bacon that I put in there. Gives it a nice flavour. Sometimes I put chopped up chorizo sausage in there, that's also nice. Not the very spicy one, just the normal one. So here we go. Chuck some pepper in there. That gives it a little bit of heat. Coriander, this is an old salt grinder. Coriander always gives things a nice flavour. Don't overdo it with the spices as well. And then our cloves. We just break the sort of head and squeeze that. Put the rest of the clove in there as well. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's plenty. Cloves are quite strong. I love the smell of cloves. Bay leaves next. Jar is empty. Needs a refill. About 4 or 5 bay leaves is fine. I'll refill that jar just now in a minute. Barbecue spice, I'm going to just put, actually I'll just put a bit, maybe like so, about a teaspoon, and then our stock cube will come last. So that's my spices added. Next I've got these beans, I'm going to slice them and put them in. You're supposed to layer it up and not stir the stuff and all that. Problem is sometimes it can burn at the bottom of the pot. Because the idea is just to let all the flavours come up through the layers of everything that you put in there. I don't really have layers in there today. You can put potatoes in there, you can put any vegetables in there. Butternut, sweet potato, whatever you like. What I normally do when I put butternut in there, I slice it into thin slices and I layer it on there. And as I said, the flavour of the meat then comes up through the vegetables. The flavours all kind of combine in there. And then last of all, the dumplings will go on top. But that I leave right until the stuff is almost cooked. So that's our green beans. I love these flat green beans. Gourd beans. Well, they're not gourd beans, what are they called? Can't remember. Got some tomatoes, I'm going to slice them up. Not all of them, just a handful. Gives it a bit of extra flavour. Just cut them into quarters. Again, these will just dissolve into the mix, so people that don't like tomatoes and onions, they won't really notice them. Tomatoes always give things a nice flavour, I find. Love my tomatoes. I'll have to see if I can grow some more in the garden this year. I have to decide still what I'm going to grow. But yeah, it's still got leeks out there, so it's nice to have a fresh leek when you want to do soup or pot of food like this. This saves on the energy a bit because you're not using 4 plates or 3 plates to cook all different pots. You're cooking everything together rather than separately. Get the old oven glove because this pot's getting a bit hot. Need to hold it steady there. As I say, you're supposed to layer this up, but this time I'm just going to mix it all up, which to some people is sacrilege with potjie, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's my potjie, do it the way I want. So that's it, we put the lid on that for a while. There's still a bit of juice in the bottom there. As long as it doesn't get too dry, then that's perfect. So I'm just going to let that steam away, keep an eye on it, add a little bit of water from time to time, and then later the dumplings will be made. I'll show you how to do those, and we'll add those on top. Right, there's the red left hand. Check how Potjie is doing. Still enough liquid in there, so that's fine. What I'm going to do now, I've decided I'm going to put some split lentils in there. I find these clips are handy to hold packets closed, even in the freezer. Just sprinkle them around in there. A couple of handfuls, gives it a bit more body. Put another one in there. And we'll just leave those to cook on the surface like that. So that's our next ingredient added. Gonna just leave this to bubble along, and I'm going to then do the stock cube. That's going in there next, just to make sure there's plenty of liquid in there so things don't dry out too much. So here we are, lentils are starting to cook. I'm going to add my stock now because the lentils are sucking up some of the moisture in there. Just hot water added with the stock cube. In it goes. That will give it a bit of extra flavour and keep the moisture levels up a bit so things don't dry out too much. Let's chuck a bit more water in there. The cube didn't quite dissolve all together. Give that a little stir there. There we go. Stock cube is in. Get my red left hand out again to hold the pot. It's more like a stew today, but that's fine. That's smelling great. Lots of flavour in there. So the next bit that I'm going to show you, the dumplings. I'll have to get my recipe. I've written it down on my computer. We'll get the recipe, do the dumplings next. Right, now for the cornmeal dumplings. Start off with some mealie meal or roller meal. Normally they recommend yellow maize meal, but the white will do. This works quite fine, about half a cup. I'm going to put a bit less than half, because it depends how many people there are, but there's only 2 of us, so I'm going to do about 1/3 of a cup. That's the first ingredient. So your dry ingredients go together. You're supposed to sift the flour, but I'm not going to bother with that. Always a good idea to put the cup in the bowl. If you spill any, it doesn't go all over the place. So that's our flour. Same quantity, about 1/3 of a mug I'm going to put in there. Right, then our dry ingredients. We need a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to put about half a teaspoon. Two teaspoons of baking powder. Bicarbonate of soda will do. If ever you have indigestion, a teaspoon of this in a glass of water, mix it and drink that. It's great for indigestion. It's a great home remedy. Instead of taking all sorts of tablets and other things that do you harm. So I'm going to put about just over a teaspoon in there. And just mix the dry ingredients together. And the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. Olive oil will be fine. I'm just going to put 1 and a bit. And the same quantity of milk as your dry ingredients. In other words, half a cup. In this case, about 1/3 of a cup, because you don't want to make the mixture too wet. because you need to be able to form like dryish balls with it that you can sort of handle without making too much of a mess. So I'll add some of the milk to see how we go. That mixture is not going to make too many. That's about the right consistency right there, so less milk than the dry ingredients then, because there's still some in the cup. And you basically just form, once it's properly mixed up, just form balls with a teaspoon. You don't want them too wet, just so that they're easy to handle and don't get stuck on the hands. And these will just go into the pot. Need a little bit more mixing, the oil's not quite mixed nicely in there. Let's mix it about a bit more. But that is perfect consistency. Of course, once we put these in, we're not going to mix the food in the pot anymore. So let's just see how we're doing there. Alright, that's perfect. The lentils have pretty much dissolved into everything else there. Still enough liquid in there, I think. So leave the lid off there a second. I think I'll throw a little bit more water in just to make sure, just so it doesn't dry out. And I'm going to now do the dumplings. So just flatten some onto the teaspoon like so. That's about the right quantity. Roll it into a ball and just pop that on top. And they'll just sit on top of your food like that. You can make them any shape you want, I guess. Don't have to be round. They will expand a bit in there anyway. I've just found that what the recipe calls for is a little bit too much for, to fit in the pot, because you want a little bit of space in between each one. You can get two more out of that mix. I may do a little bit more of that mixture actually. Mind you, that's about right. I suppose I could do more, just move those a bit to make space. So there we have it, the potjie is done. The dumplings are cooked. Like I say, it takes about 15 minutes. They sort of get a bit rubbery on the outside. And they kind of resemble cooked bread on the inside. Have a taste of that. Yep, that's nice. A quick sample from the potjie. Check what the stuff is like now. I know the colour doesn't look very appetizing, but I can assure you this is going to be really tasty. That's hot. Yep, that is full of flavour. Perfect. So that's my potjie pot. Nice meal to have on a winter's evening. Going to enjoy this. Hope that you enjoyed the making of this food, and maybe you're going to try it yourself. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And until the next video, from me it's a fond farewell, and hope that you all stay safe and well.